A lot to cover in today's video. We're going to go over the latest Detroit Lions news and rumors for you folks today, starting with Levi Onwuzurike. There's rumors reporting out that he could leave Detroit to potentially an NFC North team. We'll talk about that. Sheldon Rankins was released. Should the Lions sign him? Articles today. Given the idea, we'll go through that. Free agency and trade rumors. The latest free agency, a player connected to the Detroit Lions. We're going to do a mock draft and a roundup. We're going to go over this mock draft that was released today. Is it realistic? Is it BS? And simply the latest Detroit Lions news. Before we get into today's video, though, go ahead and smash that like button. It doesn't hurt to do it. It helps the algorithm out. Let's get this thing started right now. The Sporting News put an article out today saying that Levi Onwuzurike could leave the Detroit Lions to the Minnesota Vikings. Spot Rat projects Onwuzurike will receive a 2-year deal this offseason worth $9 million. And while Detroit is expected to have $48.49 million in cap space, they have a lot of work on. There's a chance that they'll look elsewhere to fill in a spot on the depth chart, talking about the interior of the defensive line. Now, I want to bring back Levi Onwuzurike. Why would I like to bring him back? Because we invested all this time into him. In this past season was his real full season with the Lions, recouping what we put in because we drafted him in the second round. That type of deal, the Lions could bring him back, and he can be on this team and be effective. He was very effective for the Lions this past season. So why would you invest and go elsewhere? Unless he wanted to go elsewhere. Remember, it takes two to tango. So it's a possibility that could go to a team like the Minnesota Vikings, who would love to beef on their defensive line, but I hope he doesn't. I hope he stays in Detroit instead of goes to the Vikings. So should the Lions bring back Levi Onwuzurike? Why for yes and for no? If we do lose Levi, there is another defensive tackle on the market that was released from the Bengals and has now been connected to the Detroit Lions per articles here. Sheldon Rankins, he was released by the Bengals, defensive tackle there. What had he done throughout his career? Well, he's 156 solo tackles, 30.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, and 1 interception. He has been a wrecking ball on the interior defensive line throughout his career. He has been injured, though, and he's been from the Jets. He went to the Bengals. Didn't do anything, really. 6'1", 299 pounds, 30 years old. Drafted in 2016 in the first round, 12th pick. He is a free agent. Now, look, for me, when I look at Sheldon Rankins, or if I look at any defensive lineman outside of the Detroit Lions, I'm looking for the draft. That's what I'm looking for the defensive line. And we'll get into that here in a little bit because we're going to talk about a mock draft that I would love for a draft like this to come out, but it's just extremely unrealistic. But if the Lions were to lose out on Levi Onwuzurike and they want to beef up that defensive line, we have the ability to do that, I believe, in the draft. If that doesn't work there in the draft, then we can go towards free agency and maybe look for a Sheldon Rankins. But I want to get younger first. And before the younger first, I want to bring our own guys back. I think that's extremely important for us to explore staying younger with somebody who you developed, who knows your system. We know we have in him. That's the route I'd go there. But, hey, maybe you're different. Would you guys like to sign Sheldon Rankins? S for sign, P for pass. We're going to get into a crazy mock draft, a 7-round mock draft that I think is absolutely ludicrous. But the reason that I'm sending you this mock draft is because as a trade scenario that we don't generally talk about in the draft. Usually we talk about trading up, but in this mock draft, we're trading backwards. And let's go ahead and get into this mock draft right now. So the first trade here is we are making a trade in this mock draft from A to Z Sports. Now the trade, you say, what is the trade? Well, the trade is this. We are going to be getting a trade back scenario not a trade up. So the Lions are moving back. So they're going from 28, right, to 33. We pick up 94 and 178. The Browns get the 28th pick and the 29th pick. Now, what does that mean? That means the Detroit Lions have a boatload of picks. They would have 9 draft picks. Why do I think this is unrealistic? Because this team is so good at depth, there's no effing way 9 players in this draft class would make this team. That's just way too much for the amount of depth that we have unless we lost a lot in free agency. That would be the only case. I just don't see that being the case because the Lions are a contender. So you wouldn't just let everybody go. So let's go ahead and look at these picks here. You can see pass rusher Prince Umalan. He is a projected player at 28. This would be an outstanding pick at 33. If you can still get the same player you want to get at 28, at 33, picking up draft picks, I love it. We need pass rush. Put him opposite Ada Hutchinson. Instantly better. We've talked about him. We've talked about Donovan Jackson, the guard out of Ohio State. Again, you put him on the offensive line, instant starter, right? But I do think that Kevin Zeitler is coming back. So I would love this pick even if you have Zeitler back. I want the offensive line to be absolutely stud, and this would keep it right there. No doubt about it. Then we're going edge again. Savion Jones, who could be a guy getting after the pass rusher, right? So you'd have 2. Again, you're losing, I don't know how many we're losing free agency, but they doubled up. I'm all for it right here. They get in here. They're going defensive tackle, Anus Peebles. Again, coming in there, we know with Lee McNeil having injuries, right? This is potentially of Levi leasing. So in this scenario, so far in the draft, we've addressed 2 pass rushers, interior offensive defensive line. The best draft that I could see so far. Then it goes wide receiver, because I've already seen this draft here, with Pat Bryant coming in potentially as the number 3. But I would love this draft. This is so far an A-plus draft, but it just keeps going and it's unrealistic, folks. Offensive lineman Willie Lampkin. Again, there's no effing way they're going to draft 2 offensive linemen because we drafted one last year, and I do believe Kevin Zeitler is coming back. Cornerback O'Donnell Fortune. Yeah, they could 100%, but the 194th pick, the cornerback out of South Carolina. Then they're going safety here, Malachi Moore. And this is the concept that we lose a safety in the draft. And we're going linebacker here, potentially for the Jalen Reeves-Maybin from Steve Lincoln. 9 draft picks. No freaking way this actually occurs. But this would be an A+ draft. This would be the greatest draft of all time if this was actually occur. So I want you to grade this mock draft A, B, C, D, or F. It's A+ mock draft. But it's extremely unrealistic. This would be me drooling type of draft. You're getting exactly what we need with the trenches, but who really knows? Now, there's been some other trades and other trade scenarios that's coming around, and here's one of those latest trade rumors for the Detroit Lions, and that is making a trade for a cornerback, again from Cleveland. So everybody wants to make a trade here, and in this trade scenario, and by the way, this is from, you got to check it out, it's Clutch Point on website, so throw it in there, you'll see it. The Browns get the 3rd round compensatory pick, and the Lions get Greg Newsome, who we've already talked about this offseason. I think I just did a video on it last week at some point. Again, the Detroit Lions making a trade for a starting cornerback. Greg Newsome, if we lose Carlton Davis in free agency, I am fine with this. We do need to get a cornerback, and guess what? We have a comp pick right now, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. We literally did it with Carlton Davis. So here's the trade here. Picked up the cap at $13.38 million in 2025. If they can trade him this offseason, it'd be immediate cap relief. So they get cap relief, we get a starter, and the Detroit Lions are feeling a need not just with a rookie, but with a veteran. And I think this is important for the Lions here. They need to get a, whether it be Carlton Davis or if they are, a starting veteran cornerback. I don't want to go just with Terry Arnold's sophomore year and then having just Ennis Rakestraw. I want to have a veteran in there as well. I think that's extremely important for me. Question for you. Would you trade for Greg Newsome? Why for yes and for no? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And we're going to get into here. Greg Graziano talked about this again while on ESPN. Dan Graziano says Detroit will add defensive end. And while it's likely to add defensive end, Dan Graziano doesn't believe the Lions will look to trade for Browns defensive end Myles Garrett. He explains with General Manager Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell has built a team. They don't appear in favor of splashy external signings, although Graziano notes Detroit absolutely does have the financial means to bring in a star player. Graziano adds that the Lions will be more likely to bring back veteran Zadarius Smith. This is what I've been saying all along. As much as I love to have Myles Garrett, it just seems unlikely. Now, I give it a 20% chance. 80% no chance. The only reason I give it a 20% chance is because there's a few teams I think that could do it, Detroit being one of them. With that said, I think that Cleveland's going to ask for an arm and a leg. There's other teams I think that would do that. Probably maybe the Washington Commanders being one. The Lions, just like he said, is 100% correct. Graziano is right. We just don't make moves like that. We don't. And it's not that I don't want the move. I would love to have the move. I would love, but I think it's going to be something that the Lions may not be able to afford to have, folks. I just don't believe they're going to be able to do that. So in the comments, would you make the move? Why for yes? Hit that notification bell. Have a video drop tomorrow. Adios.